Welcome. I'm Danielle Sally.
And I'm Eva Fusa.
And you're listening to Ghost Boss, stories about the freelance afterlife.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, bonus episode time.
This is our first bonus episode.
Yes.
I'm excited. Danielle's going to let me talk about books.
I know. And Eva's the avid reader. I am not.
Yes.
And I'm letting her do it.
Yes. I'm excited.
Yes. I'm excited to hear about all your book recommendations.
Yes.
Because these are all based on books you've already read?
Yes.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yes. So I set a goal for 2023 to read 52 books.
Man, which is what? A book a week?
A book a week.
Okay. Math.
It's December 7th.
Okay. Did you hit it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, did you go over it?
I started book number 67 this morning.
Stop. No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I started 67 this morning.
Okay, great.
So we are recording this a little early.
Yes.
Because we record prep.
Yes.
And then we've taken some time off for the holidays.
Yes.
So I estimate I will probably hit 72 books this year.
Oh my gosh.
That's an estimate.
Yes. You probably will go over it now.
I don't know.
You
Maybe.
might. Who knows? We'll find out.
We'll find out. So on the day that we push this recording out, we will put something in the Instagram stories about how many books I actually read.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
okay.
we'll
Noted. January 2nd, we'll actually post what your 2023 book total was.
Yes. But I'm not going to change my goal in my Goodreads app because I already met my 52 book goal and they gave me some confetti and I feel very good about that. And I don't want to change that. So
okay, let's hear it.
All right. So I have 5 book recommendations.
All right. Perfect.
I'm going to try to pitch you on all of them.
Oh,
you don't actually have to go read any of them.
Okay.
But I'd love for you to tell me which one sounds the most interesting.
Okay. That's a realistic plan.
Okay. And I have 5 books. 4 of them I read this year.
Great.
The other one I read a couple years ago, and it's the best book I've ever read in my entire life.
Which says something because you're on track to read 72 books this year alone.
Yes. And I've always been an avid reader.
Yes.
So to clarify, most of these are audiobooks. I do sometimes read physical books.
Sure.
But before I had a child and was driving him and dogs all over God's creation and doing a lot of laundry and stuff, I used to read this much just in books.
Yes.
In physical books anyway. So here we go.
Let's hear it.
All right. So, and these are no particular order.
Okay.
They're just some of my favorite books. All right. So the first one we're going to talk about is Holly.
Holly.
It is the newest book from Stephen King.
Yes.
All right. So Holly is part of a trilogy.
Okay.
She's a detective. It's alluded that she's a little like on the spectrum.
Okay.
And that kind of like shows in a lot of the narrative. And he said that, like that it alludes to that. She also appears in a book called The Outsider.
Yes.
Which we've talked
about it on this podcast.
And she appears in a short story called If It Bleeds.
Okay.
I have a lot of feelings about Stephen King. I started reading him 3 years ago. He is much better now than he used to be.
Yes.
He's always been a prolific writer, but I think his more current stuff is much better.
Okay.
So Holly is about a bunch of people who go missing and then Holly goes and finds them. And it's told in 2 perspectives from the very beginning, you know who's taking these people.
Right.
So like one chapter is the kidnappers, one chapter is Holly, one chapter is the kidnappers, one chapter is Holly. So I really like books like that because they're like, it's like moving side by side. It's a little graphic.
Okay.
It's really interesting though. It is one of his more thriller books and not horror books.
Gotcha. Okay. Sure.
So Holly's really good. Another book I would recommend is called Small Game.
Small Game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right.
It is about a reality show that is shot on.
I'm in.
Yeah. Very Survivor-esque. They're out like on an island.
All right.
And you get to choose your tool and you go out and you have to go like catch your own food and all this kind of stuff. And then they wake up one day and the crew's gone.
Ooh, where'd they go?
I can't tell you. You have to read the book.
All right.
So half the book is it's after the crew is gone.
All right.
You know, based on the summary that the crew is going to leave.
Ooh.
And so the beginning of the book, you're trying to figure out some of these like clues.
Gotcha.
About like the foreshadowing. So that's really interesting. I do a lot of these Amazon original stories.
Okay.
So they're a bunch of short stories. You can find them on Audible. You can find them on a Kindle. In Audible terms, there's usually like 5 to 7 books and they are 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes each.
Okay.
So they're a bunch of short stories.
Easy.
But you can read them individually or you can read them all together.
Sure.
My favorite one this year, I've probably done 3 of them. It's called the Far Reaches Collection.
Yes.
It is about AI and space and what all of that looks like in the future and how AI interacts with us.
Interesting.
There's 6 of them and I gave all but one 4 or 5 stars.
Oh, wow.
Which is significant.
That's a big deal for you.
Yeah, because they're all written by different authors.
Oh, okay.
I love these little collections because it's a nice palate cleanser between longer books.
Yeah.
Like some Stephen King books are 25 hours long.
Sure, you probably need a palate cleanser after those.
Right. The Stand is 48 hours long.
Okay.
You need a little break in there. But I love these collections because you get to try out a bunch of different authors. And
that's nice. I like that idea.
Mm-hmm. And then my nonfiction rec is Path Lit by Lightning.
Yes.
I think I mentioned that last week because I was reading it, but it's about Jim Thorpe, who was the first Native American to win a gold medal in the Olympics. What I really like about it is a little bit longer as well because it's about his life. It tells his story, but it also through that tells Indigenous history. So like one of the things that it talks about is like he won the Olympics in Stockholm in 1912.
Yes.
But he was not considered a U.S. citizen when he won. Native Americans were not considered U.S. citizens by birth until 1924 when they passed the Snyder Act. So you end up learning about that a little bit.
Right.
And they go into like the day that he gets the letter from the president saying that you're now considered a U.S. citizen, and they give him a pen, and it was this whole thing, and it was like 1928 or something like that. So I use that as an example because it tells Indigenous history without it being like a history book.
Right.
And so it's just a really fascinating story. So if you're into sports, if you're into Olympics, if you're into American history, like it's a really good recommendation.
I like it.
And then, so those are the 4 that I've read this year that I would recommend.
Nice.
My favorite book of all time.
I know. I'm really excited.
It's a big deal. For a long time, my favorite book was A Tale of Two Cities.
Right.
I read it when I was like 13 or 14.
Sure.
And then a couple years ago, that changed.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
For a Stephen King book.
Yeah.
But he's the master of horror, but it's not a horror book.
Okay. Really?
It's called 11/22/63. That's a date.
Okay.
All right. November 22nd, 1963.
Yes.
I didn't know what that was significant of. It's the day that JFK was shot.
Oh, yes.
So it's a time traveling book.
Interesting.
And it all centers around JFK's assassination. There's some portals. There's some time jumping. I find alternate timeline books fascinating.
Yeah.
Usually alternate timeline books you read are about the future. Like, can I alter the future ahead of me? But this is about like what happens if I go back and change the future.
Yeah.
And he gets really like in depth in the time period. And there was a really great adaptation on Hulu with James Franco. So yeah.
Awesome.
Those are my
Very
5.
cool.
So I know you don't read a lot.
I don't. And actually I pulled up, I do have a small want to read list.
Yeah.
And yours sound great, but I have to laugh because I'm looking at mine. I have a Real Housewife of Salt Lake City. I have a Peloton instructor, and I have a pop icon because I have what I want to read next year is Bad Mormon by Heather Gay. XOXO Cody by the one and only Cody Rigsby.
Love that.
Love
tracks.
him.
That tracks.
And then, of course, I haven't read it yet. I want to. Britney Spears, The Woman in Me. Those are just, if I'm reading, it needs to be a very lighthearted, fun read. I love reading Andy Cohen's, his diaries. Oh, I love those. It just like, it puts me at ease. I enjoy stuff like that. And so usually if I'm picking up a book, it's going to be, it's very lighthearted. So I might do it in that order. I might start with Bad Mormon by Heather Gay. I'm really interested in that one.
Do you do audiobooks at all?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you going to audio these? Or
I will probably do audiobooks on those. Right. I did read a couple books this year. Oh. It's funny. I finally finished. I started it literally years ago.
That's happened.
And I finally finished it, but it was Mad Women by Jane Moss. And she was a pioneering legend in advertising. And I got to meet her because we had an AAF lunch. She came in. It's still hands down one of my absolute favorite, most memorable AAF lunches that I've ever.
She came to Columbia?
She came to Columbia. She actually lived out of, I believe, Mount Pleasant. Towards the end of her life. And she was just such a cool woman. And I loved everything about her talking about being a woman working in advertising in the 1960s, because we heard so much of the man side about it.
You think?
And it was just such a great perspective to hear her story about working in advertising in the 1960s. I highly recommend it. It was such a good book.
I am seeing if it's available at the library right now. Now, she did stuff with I Love New York, right?
Yes.
The Milton Glassner logo. Love that.
It's funny. She didn't even talk about that until near the end of the book. But it's such a good read. It's such a fun read. It's funny it took me so long. And it's just because I don't make a point to read like I should. And I read it all in one weekend. I think I had a flight up to Washington, D.C.
Ew.
And I came back and I finished it over the weekend, poolside, of course. Naturally. And it was just so good. So good.
I might try to do that before we meet again.
Yeah.
So maybe we can chat like in the beginning.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And then the other book this one I did listen to. It was called Do You Mind If I Cancel by Gary Janetti. Like everything resonates. So I loved it. Loved everything about it. I love following him on Instagram. He's the one that does all these funny memes with Prince George.
Oh, memes.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say interviews. And I was like,
no, memes. It's so.
I mean, they'll talk funny to you, but how do you interview a 5-year-old?
Find him on Instagram. He's fantastic. He has another book too. I want to read that as well. But after Heather Gay, of course, The Real Housewife of Salt Lake City.
I love that. I have
to prep for America in Salt Lake City. I have to read her book before we go, of course.
Do I have to?
I would love it. Yes.
How long it is?
It is 7 hours, 47 minutes, which would be less because you listen to everything at 1.35 speed.
Not always, but minimum of 1.5.
That's right.
Or a minimum of 1.15.
Yes.
I might listen to that. I do have my first book of the year lined up.
Ooh, okay. What is it?
So to clarify that, for at least 3 years now,
yes,
I have made a point to not be in the middle of a book when the new year starts.
Sure.
I finish the book.
I can relate to this. I enjoy rounded milestones.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think it's also why, like, when I quit my job, I made sure I just had my 10-year anniversary because I enjoy a rounded milestone. Right. So I very much relate to you wanting to finish.
I'm going to finish the book. And if that means I can't start a new book for a couple of days,
what are you going to do?
I podcast or I pick small books.
Yes.
But then like that the Amazon Stories collection.
Yeah.
I try to do those all in one sprint.
Sure.
But if I had to break them, I could.
All right.
Anyways, so my first book of the new year is going to be Atomic Habits.
Okay. Tell us about it.
So it's by James Clear.
Yes.
Several people have recommended it to me.
Okay, cool.
Lots and lots of people have recommended it to me. And it says that it has evidence-based strategies that will teach you how to make small changes that will transform your habits and deliver amazing results.
Okay.
Which sounds a whole lot like Work Smarter, Not Harder.
Sounds a lot like something you should read at the start of a new year.
Right.
Yes.
And it was on sale. Audible has a big sale every now and then. So it was on sale. So I actually downloaded it a couple weeks ago, but I'm waiting.
I love it.
Because I can tell you what my first book of the year was for the last 3 years without even trying. So last year it was Revival by Stephen King.
Okay.
That was 23. 22 was Pet Sematary by Stephen King. It's 22.
Okay.
21 was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab.
Nice.
I know I've already given my book recs. That is...
Give more.
Well, this one, it was the most hauntingly beautiful book I've read in years.
Wow.
It was a book about a woman that nobody can remember and like how she got... how that happened. Like it's from her point of view, but like,
very cool.
How she interacts with the world and nobody remembers her.
Man.
Like they can see her and stuff.
Yeah.
But when they see her again, they don't remember meeting her.
Oh, wow.
It's fascinating.
Interesting.
And the Audible version is really great.
Yeah.
I always love to talk more about audiobooks because like the narrator really makes or break it. There's been several books and I'm like, I can't do it because the narrator's not great. It's beautiful. If you want to try some fiction,
sure.
It's like set in the French countryside.
I say sure. No, we'll see. We'll see.
It's set in the French countryside. You can get it from the library, which is always great because that way you don't have to commit to buying it.
Yeah, I like that
I don't
idea.
know how Apple Book works. Audible, you can return your stuff if you've only listened to I think 15% of it, you can return it.
Okay. So let's turn this all around.
Yeah.
Your list for 2024.
I'm going to start with Atomic Habits.
You're starting with Atomic Habits, but your list of books that you recommended.
For people.
I want to know, since you make such a point on what that first book of the year is out of your list that you made for our listeners.
What should your first book be?
Which would you recommend for your first book of the year?
Ugh.
I know, it's a big question.
I would say Holly.
Yes.
You can read Holly standalone.
Okay.
There's 2 other books.
Actually, that's a good question. Do you need to read the others?
You don't.
Okay.
You don't. You have more context about her. I feel
as
like
a character.
I feel like I appreciated it more
Because you read the other ones?
Because I've read the other ones and she refers back to some stuff, but she doesn't, you can read it standalone.
Okay.
You can read them out of order.
Yes.
I hate doing that. Like I'd already read The Outsider and then
I will say that will probably drive me nuts.
Yeah. I'd already read The Outsider. And so then I stopped and read If It Bleeds, which is a short story collection. So I read short story If It Bleeds in the middle of the book, went and read Holly, and then went back and read all the other short stories. If you don't want to do that, because that would bother me, I would do 11/22/63.
Okay.
It's a little longer.
Yes.
It is an incredible way to start the year.
All right.
I mean,
that's
it
the
is
one then.
If you do it, or if anybody does it, please DM me and let's talk about the color of the cards in the hat.
Yes.
And the champagne bubble analogy at the end.
There we go. Maybe we'll start a little side group for everyone that wants to discuss books with you.
I've been trying to do a book club and then I'm not very good at it.
Well, all of our listeners that want a book club and you want Eva in it, now's your time.
I could show you my Goodreads. I'm a little all over the place, y'all.
That's okay, though. That's fair.
Out of my list, I would suggest you start with 11/22/63.
Okay.
But if I'm going off my list, and I'm just like, pick a book to start with.
Yes.
If you don't do Atomic Habits with me, I've mentioned in previous episodes, Essentialism. Start with that.
You talk about that one a lot.
It's short. It's like 4 or 5 hours of listening time. It's not very long. I have a physical copy if you'd like to borrow it.
There we go. Probably not, but I'll do an audio.
Do the audio.
I'm going to be honest.
Anyways, it was a pretty short read. And I think that would also be a good first step into the new year.
All right. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. So those are my recs.
I love it.
Happy reading in 2024.
Happy reading in 2024.
Or listening.
We hope you enjoyed this bonus episode. We'll be back with a full episode on January 9th.
Oh, that's an important day for me.
Oh, tell us why.
It is the day that I put in my notice at my last full-time job.
Ooh, we'll be celebrating milestones.
Yeah,
love it.
It's exciting.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate all of you.
Yep. See y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye. Remember to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Ghost Boss Podcast. And also please like and review us on your favorite podcast app.